This is about using multimedia to enhance learning, creative learning, effective learning. And with me, we have 3 phenomenal professors. They have been creatively using this technology called Pachyderm to actually deliver small chunks of learning modules for teaching. And what we do at CASE is we have an event called Research Showcase, and this event we're inviting all the researchers on campus to showcase what they have been done. And actually Cindy Barker is the director of the event, and these professors that with me, they actually use Pachyderm to build their digital poster along with their paper poster to demonstrate their research, which allow them to use very effectively use videos, audios, and image. You know, you can enlarge, and also layers of information, which is the limitation that paper poster cannot deliver. So today, I'm thrilled that the professors are with us and showing those wonderful presentations. Actually, this is Dr. Croft from Anatomy Department, and he will be talking about fossils today. And what he also will share with us is that he is one of the power users that he actually built in his Pachyderm. I'm gonna talk about that too. We make 14 small Pachyderm projects, and we kind of consolidate together into a learning module. So that's actually pretty interesting that you will see that. And this is Dr. Goll, and she actually built the first digital published articles on the English journal that they usually don't do that in the multimedia format, and it showcases a lot of musics and interviews, which is quite interesting. And here this Dr. Whitehouse is very famous worldwide scholar research on Alzheimer's disease, and what he believes is this cognitive wellness with intergenerational living style that actually the younger generation and the seniors can actually mutually benefits of this kind of wellness. And what he does is collecting stories that build a Cleveland story bank that is also a very interesting project. And if I may spend like 1 minute to talk about what CASE Pachyderm is. We actually subscribe the MNC Pachyderm service. In that way, we don't have to deal with a lot of server part of maintenance issues, and that has been working out really well for us. So what I have been doing, I'm the system administrator. I'm creating accounts that offer training workshops and helping faculty to figure out the organization of the content. And this is actually how Dr. Croft's project starts. You know, you have you might be interested, you might be wondering how you can actually combining like 18 different little modules together into one Pachyderm. And this is the home page. There are like 3 components of it, and each of the components, you see those arrows going up and down. They are 6 separated Pachyderm projects of each other, and then you kind of combine it together with a simple HTML page that I just happen to use a Pachyderm background, so they all look like this uniform. And I also providing those templates for faculty in case if they need to connecting different Pachyderms together, because sometimes if you link external links inside of Pachyderm, it opens a new window, and that creates some sort of confusion for your viewers. So if I create a custom-made HTML pages, usually that will solve that problem. And another thing is that the video feature in Pachyderm, it usually opens like this big of the video. And if you're showing something like fossils or anatomy, you really want to see something very clear. So I also made a custom page that actually can showcase the video a lot bigger. So now I'm gonna hand our presentation to Dr. Croft.
I'm going to take a little different perspective in terms of, I think, just providing some insights to you into my experience. I think hopefully we'll have these available. I know I plan to put mine up on the web at some point, so you can play around with it on your own and explore the different templates. So I just want to talk a little bit about why I did this and kind of the process going through it. As Megan said, this is basically for learning, and my goal was learning in the broad sense, really, as it says up there, really educating peers and the public. And that's because I have sort of an image, I don't want to say problem, but we'll say an image challenge. And the challenge is that I study things like this. And most people don't look at this and see something interesting. They just see a skeleton, don't know what it is. But this is really my livelihood. And there are two constituencies that I need to educate about what I do, because this is where I work. And this is the School of Medicine on the other side of the street. And in the School of Medicine, a lab looks like this. And virtually all the labs look like that. But my lab looks like this, most of the time. Some of the time it looks like this. These are fossil collections. And so for my peers, my other faculty in the School of Medicine, they really don't understand what it means to be a paleontologist from an intellectual research standpoint. I've gotten into the habit of talking about a lab, but my lab is really just an office where me and my students work part of the time. We really have other labs outdoors. For the public and for my students, this is what they think a paleontologist is. For those of you that watch Friends, this is Ross. I don't know what job he has, but I want it, because he seems like he spends most of his time in the coffee shop and really doesn't write many grants or anything like that. A younger generation, of course, Jurassic Park. This is what also a lot of people think about the fieldwork aspect, but although fieldwork is important, it's only really a part of what I do. This, I think, is maybe our best icon, Indiana Jones. I'm sure he's one of the sexiest men in the world. He's been named by some list. Unfortunately, he's not even a paleontologist. He's an anthropologist, really an archaeologist if you want to get technical. So there's this confusion there. So these are really the two constituencies that I was aiming my presentation at. So my goals really were to teach people what a paleontologist does in terms of research. And as Megan already showed you, this is a little closer up view of my homepage, because of the three options up there, two of these focus really on this question. One is fieldwork, which I labeled finding fossils, and this is that more extroverted side of things, the Indiana Jones side, if you will, of going out and finding fossils. And this section is really geared more towards kids and the general public interested in what does a paleontologist do out in the field. And so it talks about how do you know where to look, how do you go about the process of collecting fossils, and depending on the topic, we have video segments from the field, we have images and all sort of a little game that you can play, what's a fossil, what's not a fossil. The other side of it really is the research, and this is more geared to my peers. What do I do in terms of useful research? And that's interpreting fossils. Once you find them, what do you do? And these are non-trivial things like, how do you figure out what a species is? Why is that important in the whole scheme of things? And so those are really the two main links where you saw all those 6 pages. Finally, this larger video box, the talking head being me for about a minute and a half, really tries to put this all in a bigger context of why do we care. I think a lot of people would agree that paleontology is interesting in some level in terms of just going out and finding things. And yeah, it sounds like a fun thing to do. But really, this is intellectually important. It's important for life on Earth as we know it. And that's really what I do in that video, is really put it in a broader context and try to explain to people why should NSF give me money to do what I do. That's the big picture of why I did this. In terms of my experience, I think there's some key advantages to using Pachyderm. One is brevity. Like a lot of academics, sometimes I'm inclined to be a little wordy. And because there are these templates in Pachyderm, it forces you to be concise, which I think is good, because you take your paragraph of content and you distill it down to the sentence or the word that's really its essence. So I think that's a really nice constraint in a way. For me, I use a lot of visual information in my research, looking at details of fossils. And one of the templates they have has image magnification. So you see all those fossils down at the bottom there. This is our little what is a fossil. People can guess, is that a fossil, is it not a fossil? When you click on that there, it pulls up a zoom screen like this, and this allows you to zoom in even further so you can look at something very close, which I think is great for a field like mine where you need these detailed images. And this, I think, would be a great application if I were going to use this in an academic sense at a conference, because this is something you really can't do with a poster unless you want to print the image 3 feet by 3 feet. And I think this would be great. Finally, the design is really elegant. It's fun. It was originally designed for use in museums, so it's simple, it's clean, and it's got nice audio that kind of works with you but doesn't get in the way. So to me, these were the real three big advantages. Of course, there are challenges too. The flip side of brevity is the constraints on some of the templates. Sometimes I had 7 things or 5 things instead of 6 that I wanted to include. In terms of design, there's a lot of dead space on some of the pages. Be nice to get rid of that, but you know, it's not a huge deal. And as Megan mentioned briefly, the video boxes are small. This is a page where I have 6 videos, and that's what it looks like. So she was able to design a page that looked like it that actually had a bigger video box. So I think that is nice, especially if you've got videos where you want to see closely what's going on. And of course, there are bugs. When I download it, sometimes I couldn't find the right file. Things wouldn't be aligned. If you've got someone like Megan, it's not a problem because she can go in and fix those things for you. But I think if you're prepared to do Pachyderm, I'd say 90% of the work you can do yourself, and it's not too difficult to figure out. I didn't have any experience with this, kind of worked along with it. It's very user-friendly. But for tweaking it to get it look nice and perfect, I think you need someone like Megan who can help you out. And that's it.
Thank you very much. In order to connecting different Pachyderm pages together, also those video pages that custom made, you do need to have some sort of portal page to connecting these together. So like this page right now here, actually is a look like Pachyderm page, but it's just like a web page. I actually use a Pachyderm background embedded in the page, and then I try to put everything inside that white area so it looks like just like a Pachyderm page, but this actually is manually made. And what's so great about it is that if you are a IT support person for your faculty, you can actually just create a template, just like how Pachyderm give you a template, except you're actually manually made it through Dreamweaver and give it to them. You can make it with Dreamweaver or Flash, and it will look all equally beautiful.
One of the frustrations that I had in doing my research on George Herbert, who was a 17th century metaphysical poet, was that I was able to hear music and talk with people, but I couldn't share it with other people. So one of the ways that I finally was able to work with that situation was through ITAC, through Media Vision, to create a new format, if you will, to be able to explain why composers have been setting George Herbert's lyrics for the past 400 years. So I went to England and spoke with some of the composers there and also in America, and they shared their insights as to why they chose particular lyrics and what were some of the challenges that they faced as they were working on this music. So if I can introduce some of these people to you. The first one is David Halls. He's from Britain. Then we have Barry Ferguson. Now, Barry Ferguson also talked about Orlando Gibbons, who is dead, and that posed certain kinds of problems. We took a look at Easter, and several of the different composers composed songs. This is David Ashley White from the United States, from Texas. And this is Simon Lowell. And I'd like to start with Simon's just very briefly, because Simon interview when you said English pub, because we were supposed to go to the Queen's library to do this. It was closed for renovations, so the only place available was the pub across the street. Well, we had a lot of background noise. We couldn't hear it. So what we did then is we put in subtitles. So this one is how we dealt with that particular problem. Now another thing is, because of where we held the interview, he wasn't able to play and perform his music. So when I came back to Case, 2 of my students said that they would be willing to perform this. And so what we have then are 2 students who then are going to sing and play his compositions, so that you can actually hear what he...
Ones were the obvious ones to miss out. And I think there was also, as a composer,
just gives you a little thumbnail sample of this. This particular DVD is going to be distributed in the next issue of the George Herbert Journal, which is the first electronic digital article that they've ever published. So it's going to be a very interesting thing for that. One of the things that was interesting for me also was in 1993, which is the 400th anniversary of Herbert's birth, the combined Bemerton choirs presented a concert. And I was in England at that time, and they gave me a copy of that. So I was able then to bring back some of the old music, if you will, from, you know, like the 18th and 19th century. So if you wanted to see like what kinds of settings did we have during that period, this particular section would give you a little bit of a sense of that. So you could do a little bit of comparisons. One of the most interesting individuals that I had the pleasure of meeting was Jim Scott Orrick. And his was the last addition to this presentation. I had gone to the Herbert convention and presented my work, and he was there and he performed during lunch, and I was so impressed with it I had to find space for him in this presentation. So I went back to Megan and I said, Megan, I would like to do one more, and she looked at me and go, okay. So what we did then is we made the center the credits, and that opened up the space for us to give you his presentation. My favorite piece on this is Aaron.
Music
and he's going to talk about
closer to our Appalachian music than it is to the very lavish orchestral and choral settings that Herbert usually gets. Because, as you know, Herbert was himself a musician and he played a lute. And a lute is very, very close to a guitar in sound and in style of music, musical capabilities. And you've probably heard the theory that Appalachian mountain peoples most closely approximate the English pronunciation of English in the early 1600s, because my people, I come from hillbilly people, my people were cut off from the rest of society, and I'm amazed at how often I find, while reading Chaucer and Shakespeare, I find words that my grandmother used, and I thought they sounded unusual, but actually she was preserving words and pronunciations that were very ancient. And if that same theory holds true for music, then I think that the Appalachian peoples have some musical ideas and some musical flavors that would come close to approximating George Herbert's music. He's, of course, living in the early 1600s. So this particular song, Aaron, has 5 stanzas, and I love the meaning of the text. In myself, I am not able to come before God, but with Christ's righteousness imputed to me, then I'm able to appear before the Lord. And a biographical note that also makes this song very interesting to me is Herbert felt extremely unworthy to be a priest in the Church of England. And I believe that I'm right, that on the day that he was to be ordained, he was not on time, and they found him lying prostrate before God, confessing his unworthiness and seeking the Lord's blessing. And so this song, Aaron, recaptures some of that humility that Herbert felt. Imperfections on the breast, harmony Yes, Belle.
This presentation is available on the web. I'm actually gonna put the entire presentation and also the URL on our website, our collaboration technology website. There's resources, so you can actually get to know more. This is a very interesting project, but because of our time, we have to cut short. I do want to showcase one other thing about Pachyderm, just kind of brainstorming ideas, is that the Loom Screen happened to be, I didn't realize it until I applied them into several practice and realized that the Loom Screen actually plays a wonderful feature in terms of getting music and image available. For example, like this one, I actually capture the entire music as an image, and then you can actually hear the words while looking at the music, which is quite interesting in terms of music education. It also serves a very good purpose for medical school. Let's say you put an X-ray, you can easily zoom and see where the tumor is. So a lot of creative use of Pachyderm templates that can be created. Just need a little bit of imagination. So the next faculty is going to present Pachyderm is Dr. Whitehouse.
Good afternoon, everybody. My presentation is going to be a little bit more formal in the following sense. The videotapes here will be being sent to Swiss television because they're doing a program on this for international dissemination, so I hope you don't mind that. They're interested in several aspects of this project, so I'm going to speak a little bit more in sound bites. So if I'm appearing a little awkward and a little formal for this particular setting, it's because that's going on. So let me begin by saying that I want to show appreciation for Megan, for Wendy. I had heard about Pachyderm through the New Media Consortium for a number of years, but had the opportunity to develop this project in relationship to the research showcase. The microscopic story, if you will, is that we had been interested in submitting 3 posters to the research showcase. We ended up submitting 2, and 1 was accepted. And so then when we heard about Pachyderm, we said, well, this is a wonderful opportunity to actually show 3 separate posters in an integrated multimedia presentation. And it was rather easy for us because we had components of the posters already prepared. So the components I'll show you came literally from a PowerPoint slide that represented 3 different posters. So the main focus of the presentation is the Cleveland Regional Story Bank, a transdisciplinary effort to understand stories of health and disease. And you can see here listed some of the colleagues from the university that were a part of this initiative. Let me explain simply that I was a brain banker at Hopkins and Case Western Reserve University. In fact, at the showcase was featured the new tissue bank that's being established here, because there are people who believe that collecting tissues and analyzing them is an important aspect of understanding the physical aspects of illness. Our particular approach was to develop a collection of stories and standard ways of examining those stories. The particular stories that we've examined first are stories about what we used to call Alzheimer's disease. And so the second poster involves a book that we've authored called The Myth of Alzheimer's Disease. And the third interrelated poster is on a school that my wife and I started called the Intergenerational School, where we believe different stories of age-related cognitive challenges are being told, in which people with so-called Alzheimer's disease actually participate in the school. So the 3 posters summarize the story bank as the umbrella organization collecting stories. The subject of the stories is people's aging challenges, and the third is the story. We start with a video clip on one of these pseudo pages because on another occasion I had the opportunity to explain Story Bank to another group of individuals as part of a scientific meeting at the Renaissance. So if anybody was passing by the display and didn't want to push any buttons, or there wasn't anybody to push buttons, this essentially takes somebody through the static poster of Story Bank.
Well, thanks for coming and visiting the poster. Would you like a little bit of an explanation
presuming that there's some interactivity, associated with this, then you can go to each of these components, and this is Story Bank. And we use this circular feature that you've seen before because it allows us to go through just a standard poster, an introduction, methods, the ethical aspects of it, information technology, results, and conclusion. So basically what this does is allow you to then go deeper into the page, and in this particular case, connect to the book. So that's kind of a standard single poster on the Cleveland Regional Story Bank. I'm going to use the back arrows just for ease of navigation. So as I said, in the Story Bank we collect several different kinds of stories, some of which are about so-called Alzheimer's disease. And so we have a similar array here around the book. So we go through the introduction, what is the myth of Alzheimer's, the methods we used to come to that conclusion that it is a myth, the evidence for variability in the condition, for example. And when you click on each one of these, then a piece of evidence or something will come up with explanations, and in this case, the basic point we're making is that Alzheimer's disease is not a single disease. It's variable at all kinds of different levels of description. This is kind of a funny situation because I'm not really telling you the actual story, I'm telling you the story of the story. So those of you that are puzzled more about what we mean by the myth of Alzheimer's can see me later. And then finally, finally, we just have a single page on the school.
Right here in our own city, there is a community school that is revolutionizing public education as we know it. This is the intergenerational school.
The school, thanks. And many of them, as you can see here, are young children, kindergarten through 8th grade, although they're not put into graded classrooms. I'll show you my wife on the way through here. But that's just an introductory video on the school. But in this story bank, we're featuring the collection of stories. So and again, all these photographs are used with permission. So here I focus on a resident of Judson Park who does have some mild memory problems. She happens to be the first PhD medical historian in the United States, got her PhD from my alma mater, Hopkins, and so associated with Dr. Miller's work with the kids, we have a narration.
Dr. Miller is 92 years old and the first female PhD in medical history ever in the United States. Having never had children, she described herself to me as, quote, an old maid baffled by children, end quote. Indeed, she was slow to warm to the children at the school, but over time she developed deep relationships with her student partners.
Has demonstrated there's value both to the children and to the older adults when these older adults participate in the school. So in this case, we switched to another video clip where
represented injury victim for more than 35 years. Our team of attorneys hired the leading experts in the country. Call 1-888-ELCO.
Serious lawyers for serious injuries.
Avoid that commercial. Sorry about that.
My apologies to our international audience here for my...
It's not scientists, but
anyway,
local charter school students getting
So there you can see a familiar local personality talking about the award that we got from Alzheimer's Disease International for the storytelling project that went on in the school that contributes to our sense that Alzheimer's really is a myth, which in turn represents one category of stories that are part of the overarching umbrella story bank experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehouse.
By the way, if there's one lesson that I'd like to share with regards to this, you do need someone to help out for some of the bugs, as Darin pointed out. The other thing I would say is this got me started, and I've been participating on Monday. They call it Monday mornings, but it's actually afternoon by the time it gets to the East Coast. Is that right? No, it's Adobe e-learning Monday. First Mondays, thank you. It doesn't refer to morning or afternoon. And this is all about the Adobe e-learning suite, which includes programs you may be familiar with like Adobe Connect and Adobe Presenter. And it represents, at least I think, the next step above Pachyderm, where you don't have some of the same limitations, although of course you have a greater degree of complexity, which I have not begun to master yet. But this is a taste. It's a good, simple way to get into this multimedia narrative, in my opinion. And I'm delighted that we have NMC and iTech supporting it, and I recommend you explore it.
If you have any questions, feel free to just jump in. Yes?
So do you tend to use this, and like you talked about, you had 2 different ways you were trying to use it, but do you really try and target this towards, do you ever try and target this specifically at students? I think maybe you did more than the 2 of you. I mean, you see this is a particularly good tool for teaching in the classroom at all?
I think this tool can be utilized for all different kind of reasons. It could actually use for like department websites. You can use, I actually have one department at UH build their department website using this technology. You can certainly use this to demonstrate your research. But teaching and learning, I would say yes. However, in today's technology world, I think people honors Web 2.0 tools a lot of collaboration. So Pachyderm alone is really about feeding information to your audience. There's no mechanism allow the feedback coming back to you. So how I see Pachyderm plays a role in education is that you do need to have a package of multiple technologies all together as your curriculum in teaching and learning. For example, you can actually use a web portal, like a one web page, that kind of linking to all different things, because you do need some fundamental learning knowledge before you can even be creatively using that knowledge. And Pachyderm will be a great way to present that. Or, you know, for example, like dental school, I work with one of the faculty who actually have all different kinds of x-ray pictures of the teeth, you know. You can actually see where the decay is, identify, you know, the different degrees. And those are wonderful ways to use Pachyderm. Then I think you do need to have something that allow people collaboratively, you know, like discuss about an issue or brainstorm ideas. In that way, I think you might need something like bulletin board, wiki, even, you know, using the existing tools like, you know, Twitters and other, you know, just anything that these days that everybody uses, and somehow you kind of integrate it all together into one. We had a earlier session about media vision courseware, and there's one faculty actually talk about how you actually creatively put in Blackboard and courseware together as a package. I think in today's for today's educators, it is really important that there's no one single technology that actually solves the mystery. You have to really think about what do you want to present, what your student need, and really pick and choose and creatively putting there together as your teaching tools for your students. So I see that as a tool, but I don't see that standalone. That will it works as a standalone tool, but I don't see it will make greater impact if you don't integrate with a lot of those other great tools. So
I think one thing that's very useful for is on some of the screens for self-testing. So students learning on their own, they want to assess their performance. They've got little text boxes you can push, so they can see an image, you can have a question up there, what's the structure, they can think about it, and then they can tap on the text. So I think self-learning would work really well for.
We see it as a learning tool, but in a more general way to kind of be a part of the process of influencing the blogosphere, if you want to use that word, around what Alzheimer's disease is. You're about to see a huge effort with the home box office program that's coming out. We have a very alternative message, so we're really trying to use this as a piece of technology to help. So we have this on websites. We also have submitted the link to 2 grants that supported this work because we keep talking about doing multimedia narrative, and this is a perfect illustration that anybody who's reading the grant can just click on the site and play with it themselves.
And I think it has lasting impact too, which is a key. You know, it's there for the grant people, it's not just sort of one presentation.
Also, if I can add, I work with teacher licensure, and the students that you saw performing were teacher licensure students, so that they were actually involved in the process of creating this particular DVD. So hopefully in the future they'll feel more comfortable in taking those kinds of things into their classrooms with them.
Yeah, if it's
being used for grants and things like that, how this is not a final product, it can be updated, correct?
The beauty of Pachyderm is that you can actually break down your project into smaller segments that you can repurpose them by, like what Dr. Croft has 18 Pachyderms. You can pick the 9 of them and creating another presentation for different purpose. And what happened is that we didn't really do that. You can change the elephant icon to whatever icon you want. You can change that blue background to any color you want. So it's really a custom-made features for a lot of people's needs. And because it's open source technology, I don't think there's any copyright issue in terms of the technology itself. So does that answer your question?
If I could add something else about copyright. When we were able to use this technology, we were then able to use fair use for some of the music clips that we had. Otherwise, it would have been restricted. So this gave me an opportunity to use some resources that otherwise would not be available. And then if somebody really wants to hear the entire concert for mystical songs, they can go back and purchase it because we gave them, you know, the sources for it. But at least they get enough of it to figure out, do I really like this or not?
And just kind of mention about copyrights. Pachyderm actually, you can export the entire presentation into a jump drive. And in that way, you don't need to post it on the web. You can just have it with you into the classroom, into a conference, and then you never have to share that. Let's say if some of the content does have, you know, copyright concerns. So.
Megan, one thing I wondered about was speaker support, because I've always had the fantasy that I would give a PowerPoint presentation, but rather than just having a few hyperlinks that allow you to jump around, so you can kind of ask the audience, do you want to learn more about the intergenerational school or more about Case Western Reserve University? You can then have a branching presentation. And then I realized that this would be a huge cognitive challenge for me to figure out and remember all the branches. But do people, just as we, two of us here, have used this to support our little talk, whereas Darin embedded it in the PowerPoint. So I don't know if this is good for, because you know, put it on a jump drive, you could have a lot of things on the jump drive that could support a presentation that could go in different directions if you wanted.
Yeah, you might be wondering like how big this whole thing is, if that fix it. And so far, they are all about like 500, 600 megabytes, so it's not huge. The videos we make as a flash movie format, so it's pretty, it's much smaller and easier to access as well. Any other questions?
You use a lot of video. Do you have in-house production for all of that, or do you take the video cameras out with yourselves and film everything and do all the edits and all of that?
Let me respond to that. When I first began the project, this is the second DVD that I've created, I didn't even know how to make a PowerPoint. I went over to Media Vision with a camera and they said, this is how you use it. Take off the lens cap. I'm serious. Okay, and they showed me, you know, this is how you use a tripod, these are the different things that you do, and I picked up the thing and went off to England with it and did it. So it's a learning curve. Fortunately for me, the learning curve happened smoothly, and my videos were clean and I was able to edit them well, and then I had a tremendous amount of support to be able to do it. As far as the actual putting together of the DVD, I didn't have a clue. Megan and the people over at Media Vision, they were fantastic.
Let me just kind of explain how this works. We do have an in-house production on campus, and the department is called Media Vision. I don't know if you, all these guys are doing the wonderful taping. They're all from the great division. What happened is that depends on the funding. You know, some faculty might get some grant funding from you know, other places, and in that way, that will allow us to actually get involved a little more. Like people like Dr. Goll and actually have very limited funding. In that way, you know, she purchased a digital camera, digital camcorder, and we do showing her, and then she just went on Europe, and that worked out really well. We also are very, we have this privilege to have resources in our library. We have a Friedman Center. It's a multimedia center that allow case members to check out these equipment. So you can actually borrow a voice recorder, you can borrow a digital camcorder, digital camera for free. You know, so with those support, I think that will make these projects possible. I don't know if you want to add any.
If you like iMovie or anything like that, I'm filming out in the middle of Bolivia, so there's no tech support out there. So I just shoot a lot of video, and if you shoot a bunch, then you can bring it back and hopefully get a minute or a minute and a half. So with ours, there's a lot of pruning and doing things like that. But there are some nice programs out there where if you want to do a little bit of the pruning yourself, it's pretty straightforward. You can do voiceovers. It's kind of in between the just filming versus, and then also getting a lot of support from Media Vision.
My work was supported by the Baker Nord Center for the Humanities, and so I was awarded the first digital grant, and that enabled me to be able to do some of the things that I was able to do. So there's a lot of grant writing, and there's a lot of things that are involved with supporting this type of research, but I'm very grateful for them doing that.
Any other questions?
This morning I ordered the new Flip Ultra HD camera for $179. You can actually record almost 1080p high definition video, and they're designed to just plug in your USB port and download quickly. Of course, we start getting into high definition and start getting a little bit resource intensive, but you know, Larry was showing how you can do it with cell phones, and so I think it's become a lot easier to manage video. Although, as you indicated, you know, if you want to do a lot of editing, that can be quite time consuming and resource intensive for your time and the computer power. Thank you.